Good evening, namaskar. So we will, to generate a conversation, we will start with a small video. We'll watch it together and then let's see what happens. Is that okay? Okay.
9 basic emotions in the Natya Shastra, the Navarasas. Love, Shringara Rasa. Valor, Veera Rasa. Compassion, Karunya Rasa. Wonder, Adbhuta Rasa. Laughter, Hasya Rasa. Fear, Bhayanaka Rasa. Revulsion, Bhivhatsa Rasa. Anger, Raudra Rasa. And tranquility, Shanta. The 9 basic emotions.
So, good evening. So, I hope you enjoyed watching this Navarasas, which are very famous. And it's very interesting that there was a 1,500-year-old debate on the rasas, starting from Natya Shastra, which had originally only 8 rasas. And after a 1,000-year debate, the 9th rasa was finally added by the great Kashmiri philosopher Abhinav Gupta. The Shanta was his contribution. And now we all talk about peace. And that is your connection with a 2,000-year-old history on the study of emotions, which were at the heart of Indian psychology, which are indeed at the heart of Indian psychology. Whereas we can focus on cognition, the heart is in the definition of emotions, and beyond emotions, the rasa. So let's start with this. Yes. So this comes from Shiva Sutras, which is from the Kashmiri tradition. Nartaka Atma, Ranga Antaratma. The word Ranga is a stage, and that is where we are going to spend some time. I hope we spend the time together, as we call it in neuroscience as shared attention. So, rasa is the topic that we will think about for a minute, for 5-10 minutes, and I'll try to connect it with happiness. This is a group of dancers from Manipur, and one of the most interesting things that you see in the idea of rasa is that it is in the process of the moment as well as an overall understanding together. So I first got introduced to the idea of rasa when I was doing my internship in Delhi University in psychology. And people, when I used to talk with people in the hospital, I had my internship in a mental health hospital called the Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital. people would say, जीवन में रस नहीं है. And I would be taken, for a moment I would pause. I would be thinking, what does that mean? So what does it mean कि जीवन में रस नहीं है? It's an overall understanding of how one is living, but it is also a moment-to-moment awareness of the process. And how is that connected to the idea of happiness and neuroscience? Okay, so when we look at staying in the moment, we are psychologists, as in we are trying to study psychology seriously and trying to look at emotions. Then one of the questions that arises in us as we experience the moment and it passes by before we catch it is, why are we not able to stay in the moment? And we discussed a lot of ideas, but one of the things that I thought was interesting. Remember, I was just thinking कि जीवन में रस नहीं है का क्या मतलब है? क्यों नहीं है रस? जो जीवन तो हो रहा है. Life is happening. So I thought, what were those cultural processes or channels which were curating attention, which were deploying attention in a masterful way and talking about an immersive experience without hijacking desire. So, when do we stay and immerse in the moment effortlessly? Like if you listen to a music, if you listen to songs by Lata Mangeshkar or by Arijit Singh or by Shreya Ghoshal, or even if you listen rock, how is it that you're immersed in that moment effortlessly? So that is a masterful deployment of senses that we see in the rasa theory, which is a study of emotions and self-awareness that comes along with it. So, now you notice the Manipuri dancers, and you notice the dancer that was there, and now you see that there are these hastamudras, or the movements of the hands, that we see in all forms of art. And so the point here for us to know in rasa theory is that it doesn't separate the mind, body, brain. It is complete embodied theory which uses motor functions, which we like to study in psychology, which you saw in the first slide, which uses hands. And if you saw the video, it shows the facial expressions particularly. So the whole person together, without separating the body-mind dualism, is something which is unique in the study of rasa, which is a part of Indian psychological traditions. Okay, so the concept that we see here is that to not deny the emotion, but to find cultural processes to channel it appropriately. Appropriately is a key word, which is why we call it rasanubhava, which means the first person experience. Your own first-person experience of rasa. Now, if you want to connect it to this line about the dancer is the self, nartaka atma, ranga antaratma, that I am watching myself dancing. That is what life is, that I am dancing, but am I able to watch that? How do we get those pedagogies? So the first principle that we see in psychology and pedagogy, Indian psychology and pedagogy, is that most pedagogies, most learning separates mind and body. So you have very abstract ideas, but the body is not moving. It's not moving in the class. It's not moving anywhere. So when we look at experiential knowledge, we are talking about a full person knowledge. The knowledge of the body, the knowledge of the mind, the knowledge that the culture curates and channels. That is rasa anubhava. If it is not appropriately done, then the term that I saw in my research was called rasa abhasa. Rasa abhasa. Right? Rasa abhasa means a deceptive kind of experience of rasa, but it's not appropriate. So when we talk social media, we get immersed in social media, we do scrolling. Most of us, I am not on social media, so I really don't know much about it, but I hear that people keep scrolling, people keep gaming, people keep playing. And we in psychology say that it is due to a neurotransmitter called dopamine, right? Dopamine is associated with mastery motivation. However, is that rasa? Well, the texts in Indian psychology will say no. They will say that it is coming in an inappropriate form. And therefore, that cannot be counted as rasa. It is a rasabhasa. So, rasa anubhava is based on two ideas. First person experience, anubhava. So, for all pedagogies which are called as experiential, there has to be a first person experience of it. So we see similar things in movies, for example. Why is it that when we see movies, we start crying? Some people cry, some people don't, of course. Why is it that when there is some fun process happening, some jokes happening, we laugh? Why is there what we psychologists call as contagion? And that in neuroscience is related to now, recently in the 90s, found through a discovery of neurons called as the mirror neurons. So please check out mirror neurons, which are a subset of neurons in all perception areas. So motor neurons, which are in all perception areas, visual perception, auditory perception, taste, fragrances, as well as touch. So these mirror neurons help us to feel like the other. Right? So right now we can evoke a song. Which is one of your favorite songs currently? Anything that comes to your mind? Let's say I could say some song that Kantara. Kantara is currently going to be a hit, I am told. So in Kantara, can you right now close your eyes and evoke a sense of the music of Kantara? If you can, even mildly, that evocation is arising from mirror neurons, right? So rasa anubhava is centered in embodied knowledge, which is a whole person knowledge, centered in experience, but not individual locked in the body. A shared experience. A shared experience in a cricket match, like yesterday. A shared experience in a music concert. A shared experience in a guru-student teaching process. So the third element of Indian pedagogy is a shared experience and not a single person locked in the body-brain experience. Fine. So how did I come around this? My own journey, right? So rasa and self are completely connected to each other. Rasa is part of the self. Raso vai saha, right? So how does a formal research process start? It must start with curiosity, but it must move to formal method through iterative processes continuously, like a tala cycle. You come to the sum, the first beat of this tala cycle, and then you go ahead with the formal method, then you again come to the first beat. And of course, it is centered around the first person reflexivity and your ability to relate to that, to your life and to the life of people around you. Right? So this is how it looks in a formal sense, and I teach in a university. So there are theoretical texts that I studied. There are theoretical texts like Natya Shastra, or there are theoretical texts that I studied. I had to struggle a bit because I knew a little bit of Sanskrit, but I did not know technical Sanskrit. So there is some process for it, We can go through that process. That's not a deal breaker, right? Then there is a lot of material in the Indian languages. The languages that we speak at home are filled with metaphors and emotions that are of this earth. And the new education policy talks about the languages because cognition is language or very closely related. There are philosophical debates. Let's not go into that. So our languages carry those metaphors, those ideas, those smells, those fragrances, and those memories, right? So there are theoretical sources that we see not only in Sanskrit texts, but in all Indian language texts, in Hindi, Awadhi, Brajbhasha, Marathi, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, all the languages of East, Bengal, Northeast, there is emotion hidden in the land, and it is seen in the language. Right, so you do theoretical work, then you test it out. So I tested it with a lot of dance teachers, a lot of music teachers, a lot of philosophers. And then I tried to look at the theory part of it. So the text, theory, empirical work. Text, theory, empirical work. Now, I'm just going to stop at this last point maybe. Fundamentally, the idea here is that the stage, Ranga, is seen as a projection outward to begin with. However, the interesting part in rasa theory is that the stage can be projected inward as well. Right? So how we see ourselves in our dreams. We see ourselves in our dreams, we are doing a bunch of things, some things are going right, some things are not going right. So the stage is a projection outward and inward. Why is this important? Because sometimes emotions can trap us, which is what is called the hijacking of desire. So now, the difference between gaming relentlessly for 3 hours, I don't know how much, whatever, I was thinking of 30 minutes, and a stage performance is that I'm able to see from a distance. Whereas, if I am in the world, I'm not able to see. And that is at the heart of rasa. Why is it that we are not able to see? Why is samsara, sangha, which needs to be removed, sangha, parityaga, whereas when you see the same story on the stage, you are able to enjoy the story. Why? When you are in the story, when you are not getting promotions, or when your books are not getting published, or when there is office politics, you are not able to enjoy that. You are not able to stay in the moment. Why? But when you see office politics story on the stage, you are able to see that. That is why the stage is very important, because that's a distinction between emotions as a barrier and emotions as rasa. And the distinction between experiential learning that we study generally, which is trending, which is loose, whereas rasa, which is solid on theory, with this one single point that are you able to distance yourself? So I asked this question to few teachers, that if I was getting abducted, like the Ramayana story gets replayed again and again in Ram Leelas all over North India. So I once met a dance teacher and I said, if I was going to be getting abducted, imagining that itself is painful for me. Imagining that, right? But I'm able to see from the stage, and I'm able to cry a bit, but I'm not broken. Why? So he explained this point to me. Can I engage with something but from a safe distance? Now, the safe distance changes on your ability to stay in the moment and engage with it internally as well. So there will be some people who can't, bear some pain, emotional pain. They will immediately deflect it, right? That's because they can't stay with it. Whereas there will be some people with therapy or with meditation or with yoga, whatever methods that you use, the principle is, can you stay with it? Why? How can you stay with it? The psychological principle is, you are engaging with it, but with a distance. That is Sakshi. And therefore, the same emotion gets transformed into rasa. Why is calm not rasa, whereas Shrungara is rasa? Why? Because you're able to see it. Right? So now this brings us freedom. If I can see something and I can watch it carefully and engage with it but not lose myself, then I can play roles. I can play a role of a teacher and not get caught in it. I can play a role of Ravana but not get caught in it. And therefore, by not curating my desire, my identity is not hijacked. I am playing the role of Ravana. I can choose to play the role of Ravana but not get caught in it. But if I am in real life, I am not able to see I am playing the role of Ravana or I am Ravana, then it's very difficult for me to process it ethically. I'm thinking that. Okay. And this connects to a history in the Indian history of bhakti as a rasa. Can I see the whole world as a stage and the play of consciousness? Can I see the whole world as a play of consciousness and enjoy that with the sense of fellowship? Because not everything will happen according to our wish and our desire in this world. So if things happen according to our wish and desire, I'm happy. If things don't happen according to my wish and desire, I'm unhappy. Then there is no rasa. Rasa is, I'm able to see internally with that distancing. I'm able to see but engage with a sense that transforms my engagement with the world, because I'm able to see it as a play, as a dance, as a song of music. As a music. And that bhakti rasa is called ananda, joy, right? So this is how it looks like. Now, I talked about some aspects of neuroscience. The essential point here is that researchers now have found that the brain is not biological alone, it is biosocial, it is cultural. And there are several elements of it that we briefly mentioned, like the mirror neuron frameworks and the neural plasticity that continues throughout life. So the idea here is to recognize the whole person, and that brings me to this end of this conversation. Thank you.